Time is like a river that carries us forward into encounters with reality that require us to make decisions. We can't stop our movement down this river, and we can't avoid these encounters. We can only approach them in the best way possible. Good morning, everybody, and the wait is over to find out what we're reading today. So yesterday we were still reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, but we finished that one yesterday. All the recordings are up on the YouTube channel, so stick around and I'll tell you how you can get access to those. Some very good lessons and my commentary, of course. Today we are reading Principles by Ray Dalio, which is a really great book. So in 1975, Ray Dalio started a small little company called Bridgewater, and it has become a phenomenon. And a lot of people, I'm not sure if you're one of them, but a lot of people follow Ray Dalio to find out what his take is on the market and think that he's a very smart man with very good answers with regards to what is happening and what possibly might be happening. So let's get into Principles. It is a very, very interesting book that talks about his principles on life, on work, on business, on different things. So I'm looking forward to sharing some of this with you. Let's get into it, and I'll share all sorts of different things at the end. I will go over to Bigo and follow everybody that's left a comment or sent a message. So I'll get back to all of you in just a moment. But let's get into reading first. And it starts off by saying, think for yourself. What do you want? What is true? What are you going to do about it? And then part one, where I'm coming from. Time is like a river that carries us forward into encounters with reality that require us to make decisions. We can't stop our movement down this river, and we can't avoid these encounters. We can only approach them in the best way possible. When we are children, other people, typically our parents, guide us through our encounters with reality. As we get older, we begin to make our own choices. We choose what we're going after, our goals, and that influences our paths. If you want to be a doctor, you go to medical school. If you want to have a family, you find a mate, and so on. As we move towards these goals, we encounter problems, make mistakes, and run up against our own personal weaknesses. We learn about ourselves and about reality and make new decisions. Over the course of our lives, we make millions and millions of decisions that are essentially bets, some large and some small. It pays to think about how we make them because they are what ultimately determine the quality of our lives. I think there's an article that I read that said that we make about, I think it's about 40-something thousand decisions a day. So if we can reduce that number, it makes life a lot easier. So for example, if we don't have to think about what we're wearing in the morning, we already know what we're going to be eating by the end of the day, then that is going to give us a little bit less issues with our willpower because it will go down over the day. But each of those decisions that we do need to make, there are still some decisions that we're going to have to make no matter what. Those decisions are really going to shape what our future will look like. But there are so many of them that it's impossible to know which decision will get us to where. Plus, the future is very, very unpredictable. But what is for certain is that the better we can learn to make decisions, the better we can learn about decision making, and the better we can become at decision making, which is something we don't learn at school, something which not many people think about. It's not really a skill people want to learn or think about needing to learn, how to make better decisions. But Ray Dalio is talking about it here, how important it is decisions, because each of those decisions we make is going to have a certain outcome. So if you want to have better outcomes, you need to make better decisions. We're all born with different thinking abilities, but we aren't born with decision-making abilities. We learn them from our encounters with reality. While the path I went down is unique, being born to particular parents, pursuing a particular career, having particular colleagues, I believe that the principles I learned along the way will work equally for most people on most paths. As you read my story, try to look through it and me to the underlying cause and effect relationships, at the choices I made and their consequences, what I learned about them, and how I changed the ways I make decisions as a result. Ask yourself what you want. Seek out examples of other people who got what they wanted and try to discern the cause and effect patterns behind their achievements so you can apply them to help you achieve your own goals. To help you understand where I'm coming from, I'm giving you an unvarnished account of my life and career, placing special emphasis on my mistakes and weaknesses and the principles I learned from them. So I will definitely say that even though we are all unique, even though we have unique circumstances, it's actually something that I was learning this morning, because I'm learning about systems and I'm learning about how to structure my time better, how to figure out what is most important, to prioritize all of these different things. And even though we are all unique in a system sense, yes, as a business owner, for example, you want to be able to customize and make something that the client wants to have. But if you're customizing everything, the price is going to be extremely high. It's going to take a lot of time. So unless the client is willing to pay for that, customization is not necessarily a good thing if you want to have more clients. So one thing that you can do is you can systemize and reduce the amount of customizations. So for example, if you go to buy a car, you can buy a car and you can probably choose from about 5 or 6 colors. So yes, there might be 100 different colors that are possible, but you can only choose between 4 or 5 and 6 colors. You might be able to get all these different extras, but they might only offer you 5 or 6 different extras in order to be able to make the process quicker. So this way I can get my car sooner than if I have to choose and spend time and have meetings, and all of that wasted time is a lot of time. So for example, you could ask a client, would you rather have $100,000 outcome from this work that we do together, but we're going to have to spend 10 to 15 hours to be able to have meetings and discuss and create something customized for you, and then it will take 8 to 12 weeks to be able to deliver the product to you? Or would you rather earn 90,000, no meetings, we've already got the framework to get you started, and then it will only take 2 weeks for you to get that 90,000? And I think you'll find that most people will choose the 90,000 because it is faster. We like things that are immediate. We like our immediate gratification. So even though we live in a world where all of us are unique, a lot of the principles in life are going to be the same. They are going to be universal to all of us. If we make certain decisions, then we're going to get similar outcomes, regardless of what our circumstances are. If I yell at somebody, then either they are going to beat me up or they're going to shrink away. But other than that, there are not that many choices. And so the decisions that we make are going to determine a lot of our outcomes. So if we can become better at making decisions, then we are on a road to success. Chapter 1, My Call to Adventure, 1949 to 1967. I was born in 1949 and grew up in a middle-class Long Island neighborhood, the only son of a professional jazz musician and a stay-at-home mum. I was an ordinary kid in an ordinary house and a worse than ordinary student. I loved playing around with my pals, touch football in the streets and baseball in a neighbor's backyard when I was young, and chasing girls when I got older. Our DNA gives us our innate strengths and weaknesses. My obvious weakness was my bad rote memory. I couldn't and still can't remember facts that don't have reasons for being what they are, like phone numbers, and I don't like following instructions. At the same time, I was very curious and loved to figure things out for myself, though that was less obvious at the time. And the interesting thing when you read stories like this is that even very, very successful people have varied backgrounds. They have their weaknesses. Very often we think that they only have strengths. And so I love it when people write about their weaknesses and what they haven't been so good at. Somebody just asked, is he Russian? So I don't think Ray Dalio is a Russian, but I could check. I'm not sure. I didn't like school, not just because it required a lot of memorization, but because I wasn't interested in most of the things my teachers thought were important. I never understood what doing well in school would get me other than my mother's approval. My mother adored me and worried about my poor grades. Up until middle school, she would make me go to my room and study for a couple of hours before going out to play. But I couldn't bring myself to do it. She was always there for me. She folded and rubber banded the newspapers I delivered and baked cookies for the two of us to eat while we watched horror movies together on Saturday nights. She died when I was 19. At the time, I couldn't imagine ever laughing again. Now when I think of her, I smile. My dad worked very late hours as a musician until about 3 in the morning, so he slept late on weekends. As a result, we didn't have much of a relationship when I was young, other than him constantly nagging me to take care of chores like mowing the lawn, cutting the hedges, which I hated. Interesting thing around that, one of the reasons that I like to teach people and why I strive even more for financial freedom is because when you are a parent, you want to be able to be there for your children. And we want to be productive to society. And with a business, for example, you can be extremely productive. If you're investing, you can be productive to society still. But for me, and everybody's going to be different, but for me, it's very important to be able to be there for my future children, because I still don't have any. But to be able to do things that are important to you are a part of the human condition. So we used to come from tribal times where we had our family with us, and we'd go out and we'd hunt, and we'd come back and we'd have time with the family, and we'd sit around the fire and eat together. And this is very important still, and yet our modern life holds us back from being able to do that. So it is interesting to be able to see how financial freedom can allow you to be able to go back to that in our modern society without detracting from our contribution to society. So I always find it interesting when somebody talks about the father not being around. And I think that that's one of the plights of modern society, where parents struggle to be around for their children because of the pressures of modern life. So it's really good to strive to be like Ray Dalio in that sense, like many other successful people. I think there's an extreme of pushing it too far and working so much to be able to have the financial freedom that you never get to the financial freedom because you keep working. And there's also staying at home and not doing anything, which in some cases is completely okay. So for example, you might have the mother that goes to work and the father that stays home and look after the kids, and vice versa. But the idea being that you find some sort of balance where you're still able to spend time in doing the things that you want, but also being able to pursue a career or start a business or do what other kind of investing that you'd like to do. He was a responsible man dealing with an irresponsible kid. Memories of how we interacted seem funny to me today. For example, one time he told me to cut the grass and I decided to do just the front yard and postpone doing the back. But then it rained for a couple of days and the backyard grass became so high I had to cut it with a sickle. That took so long that by the time I was finished, the front yard was too high to mow and so on. So it just kept going. After my mother died, my dad and I became very close, especially when I started my own family. I both liked and loved him. He had a casual, fun way about him with the that musicians tend to. And I admired his strong character, which I assume came from living through the Great Depression and fighting in both World War II and the Korean War. I have memories of him from when he was in his 70s, not hesitating to drive through big snowstorms, shoveling himself out whenever he got stuck in it, like it was no big deal. After playing in clubs and cutting records for most of his life, he began a second career in his mid-60s, teaching music in high school and at a local community college, which he continued until he had a heart attack at 81. He lived another decade after that, as sharp as ever mentally. When I didn't want to do something, I would fight it. But when I was excited about something, nothing could hold me back. For example, when I resisted doing chores at home, I eagerly did them outside the house to earn money. Starting at age 8, I had a newspaper route, shoveled snow off people's driveways, caddied bus tables, and washed dishes at a local restaurant, and stocked shelves at a nearby department store. I don't remember my parents encouraging me to do these jobs, so I can't say how I came by them. But I do know that having those jobs and having some money to handle independently in those early years taught me many valuable lessons I wouldn't have learned in school or at play. In my early years, the psychology of the 1960s US was aspirational and inspirational to achieve great and noble goals. It was like nothing I've ever seen. One of my earliest memories was of John F. Kennedy, an intelligent, charismatic man who painted vivid pictures of changing the world for the better, exploring outer space, achieving equal rights, and eliminating poverty. He and his ideas had a major effect on my thinking. The United States was then at its peak relative to the rest of the world, accounting for 40% of its economy compared to about 20% today. The dollar was the world's currency, and the US was the dominant military power. Being liberal meant being committed to moving forward in a fast and fair way, while being conservative meant being stuck in old and unfair ways. At least that's how it seemed to me and to most of the people around me. As we saw it, the US was rich, progressive, well managed, and on a mission to improve quickly at everything. I might have been naive, but I wasn't alone. In those years, everybody was talking about the stock market because it was doing great and people were making money. This included the people playing at a local golf course called Links, where I started caddying when I was 12. So I took my caddying money and started playing the stock market. My first investment was in Northeast Airlines. I bought it because it was the only company I've heard of that was selling at less than $5 a share. I figured that the more shares I bought, the more money I would make. That was a dumb strategy, but I tripled my money. Northeast Airlines was actually about to go broke and another company acquired it. I got lucky, but I didn't know it at the time. I just thought about making money in the markets was easy, so I was hooked. In those days, Fortune magazine had a little tear-out coupon you could mail in to get free annual reports from Fortune 500 companies. I ordered them all. I still remember this as well. I used to get the Financial Times when I was at university, and you could order certain reports, and I remember getting like this big, massive brown box. Usually they'd send them in envelopes because people would order 1 or 2 or 3, and I think I ordered like about 50 of them, and I'd go through and I'd look at the financials and I'd figure out how it worked and what it was. And I think that is something really important. So Ray Dalio has this really inquisitive nature around these shares, and he's still young, so he's still open to just looking at it and being inquisitive and not really worrying too much. So he buys them, he has his ideas of how they'll work, and whether it works out or not doesn't really matter. He's made the decision, and that is what's going to allow him to move forward with it. And so I did the same thing. So if you can be inquisitive, if you can be interested in a certain subject, you're going to be much more successful at it. If it's something that doesn't interest you, so if you are more into real estate than the stock market, then get inquisitive about real estate and learn as much as you can. If you're inquisitive about the stock market but not real estate, then get inquisitive about the stock market. If you're into everything, then you need to slow down and do it one at a time. When I first started, I wanted to do everything at once. I was doing everything at once, and I got no results at everything at once. In those days, Fortune magazine had a little tear-out coupon. I ordered them all. I can still remember watching the mailman unhappily lugging all those reports to our door, and I dug into every one of them. That was how I began an investment library. As the stock market continued to climb, World War II and the Depression seemed like distant memories, and investing seemed like simply a matter of buying anything and watching it go up. It would certainly go up, the common knowledge held, because managing the economy had developed into a science. After all, stocks had nearly quadrupled over the previous 10 years, and some had done much better than that. So it's interesting how there are going to be times in history where it seems like it's always going to be extremely easy and there is nothing to worry about. And there are times when it's going to be extremely difficult. So keep in mind what kind of time it is, because at the moment we're a little bit high in that sense. If we were back in those days, maybe we'd be at the right time to be able to ride it up. At the moment, it might be a little bit high, but we'll have to see what happens from this point forward. So that is the beginning of our Principles, Ray Dalio. So I hope you enjoyed that. It's a little bit different to Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but that is okay. So Mladen on the Zoom, I'm just going to put the phone down for a second so I can read it. Mladen says, if you find you are weak in a particular area or not interested in it, why just do not accept you are not designed for that, not meant to do it, and not in that way. Accept it, let others to accept it, move on, find your strengths and work in them. Do what you are meant to do and be what you are meant to be. Forget people who do not accept it. I absolutely agree with that one, because we can spend a lot of time working on our weaknesses and we can tweak them a little bit. But things that don't interest us is something different. So if there's something which is a weakness that it would probably be better to improve if we're always getting angry, if we are always upsetting people, if we are doing all of these different kinds of things, that's something that we can work on. Probably not something we'll completely change, but it's something that we can work on to take the edge off a little bit. But something that doesn't interest us. And that's not to say that it might not interest us later. So something that interests us now might be boring to us in 10, 20 years. Usually you don't think of it that way, but it can change. So embrace what you're enjoying at this moment in time. It might change, and then when it changes, embrace what you're enjoying at that moment. And the things that you enjoy are going to be able to give you a much better result, because this is the thing that you are going to research. These are the things that you're going to spend time on. These are the things that you are going to absorb and learn much more quickly and much easier than anything else. So, thank you very much, Mladen, for your comment, and absolutely agree. Sometimes you just have to let go of the things that you don't find interesting, and there's no need to focus on them. So I hope you enjoyed the reading and the new book choice. I am going to continue reading from Ray Dalio tomorrow morning. In the meantime, if you'd like to see more of the recordings, if you'd like to see the recordings of Rich Dad Poor Dad, then you are able to do that by going to the YouTube page, the YouTube channel, The Passive Cashflow Club. You'll be able to find The Art of Thinking Clearly, Rich Dad Poor Dad. You'll be able to find other videos on investing and money supply, whether you should get a credit card, book reviews, lots of different other things. And I'd also love to hear from you. Make sure you subscribe so that you know when new videos go up. But I'd also love to hear from you. If you're into investing, what are your challenges? What are your questions? What are you working on? And what are you uncertain of? I would love to know what your questions are so that I can create videos answering those. Other people will be able to benefit from it, and we'll put it up on the YouTube channel, The Passive Cashflow Club. So reach out to me on Instagram. You can reach out on Big O, but it is so full of spam that I really struggle to find the serious people who've been watching my videos. So please reach out on Instagram. You can find me at business_team_6_official. And I would love to hear from you and have a conversation about investing. I would love to hear your questions, and then I can create videos and put that up on the YouTube channel for you so that you are able to enjoy that. Now, we were also talking in this book about investing because obviously Ray Dalio owns an investment firm, which is really exciting. Money makes the world go round. Money makes our life easier, and money is what allows us to be able to spend time with our kids, which we spoke about at the beginning of the chapter when Ray Dalio's father wasn't really there for him. So if you'd like to learn more about money as well, reach out on Instagram, because tonight, and we also have it in the future, but tonight, if you have time, we are running a cash flow game. So that's Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, which is going to teach you how to play in real life, how to invest, how to do certain things. It will change your mindset, so it will help you to be able to trick your mind into thinking that you're already taking action towards things that you might not be doing right now. So if you're into stocks, if you're into real estate, if you are into business, if you're into any other kinds of investments, cash flow is a great way to be able to do that. We're playing tonight, so feel free to send a message and I'll send you the details for that. And we are playing the online version today, which is a little bit more advanced. It has more realistic scenarios. So you're going to learn even more from it, which is going to benefit you in that you're going to have a better understanding to be able to implement in real life, or if you're already implementing, how to improve. You might learn something about better tax strategies or how to protect your assets, or you might learn something with regards to a new strategy that you hadn't thought of that you can implement for your stocks or your real estate or for your businesses. So thank you so much for joining. I'm going to leave you to it. I'm going to finish the Zoom, and then I'm going to come back to Bigo and go through and see who has joined, and follow everybody that sent a heart or sent something or left a comment. And then I am looking forward to hearing from you on Instagram, seeing you on YouTube. And I'd love to know your questions so that I can make a video with the answers and put them up on YouTube for you. And once again, thanks for joining.